Shout out to Cora Gray. You know what I'm saying? Told me react to this. And everything I say I'm gonna react to as promised, either the same day or the next day. This video is why everybody hates the Grammys. We ain't gonna talk too much. We're gonna get straight into it.
Grammys are a highly esteemed award show that is taken very seriously by artists and fans. Well, most of them. While it's many artists' dream to win a Grammy, a slew of controversies have led to many other artists boycotting the Grammys for a variety of different reasons. The Grammys and the Recording Academy have been accused of sexism, racism, favoritism, and elitism. But is this really the case, or are people just upset that their favorite artist got snubbed? Well, to really understand the truth, we have to go back in time to the 1950s when the Grammys were first created. But first, a message from our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Have you ever been super bored in class or on a long car ride and wished you had something to entertain you? Well, that's where Raid Shadow Legends comes into play. Raid Shadow Legends is a completely free-to-play mobile game with millions of. Now back to the video. In the 1950s, some Hollywood executives who were creating the Hollywood Walk of Fame stars realized that the music industry was missing a way to honor the best musicians in the way that the Oscars and Emmys would honor the leading artists in film and television. So the aforementioned executives founded the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, or the Recording Academy for short, in 1957. The original committee was comprised with a bunch of record label executives. At first, they were planning on naming the award the Eddie after Thomas Edison, as he had invented the gramophone, but after taking a public vote, they settled on the Grammy. In 1957, Paul Weston, one of the founders of the Recording Academy, said, "Our purpose is the same as the movie and TV academies, an honorary to further our profession. We feel it's about time the record industry grows up and gets a little recognition for its part in the entertainment industry." The first Grammy Awards were hosted in 1959 with only 28 different categories. The categories that I'm talking about are how they would classify different genres and artists. There are multiple different fields, such as rock, for example, and within those fields there are different categories, such as Best Rock Performance, Best Metal Performance, Best Rock Song, and so on. As of now, there are 91 categories. However, there are 4 categories that really stick out, and those are within the general field. These categories, known as the Big Four, are Record of the Year, Album of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best New Artist. Since the Big Four categories are the ones that are the most sought after, they're also the ones that have caused the most controversy. But how does an artist even go about receiving a Grammy? Who gets to make the oftentimes controversial decision on who wins? Well, there are 5 main steps to how artists are nominated and awarded a Grammy. First, an artist will have their music submitted. As long as their music was released within the proper time period and they have a member of the Academy or a media company submit their music, they will qualify to be nominated. Then there will be a screening to see whether or not their music qualifies for said fields and categories. Then they are nominated by the voting members of the Academy. Who are the voting members, you may be wondering? Well, the Recording Academy has over 20,000 members made up of performers, songwriters, producers, engineers, instrumentalists, and other creators currently working in the recording industry. These are the members who are allowed to vote in the first round of nominations. Then there is the controversial Special Nominating Committee, which some have referred to as the Secret Committee, as they are made up of 15 to 30 anonymous members from the Academy's chapter cities. The people within this committee were handpicked by the then executive Bill Frymouth. These are the people who determine who the final.
Who's an artist y'all feel that's been snubbed from getting a Grammy? Like, let me know what y'all think about that. Like, who y'all think in the comment section down below.
Nominees are. After they make that decision, the whole Recording Academy gets to vote on who wins the Grammy Award. However, the Special Nominating Committee has stirred up quite a bit of talk among the public, and it all began with their shady history. According to Vox, in the mid-1990s, the Recording Academy quietly assembled a committee to review voters' choices. This committee goes over the nominations for the top 4 categories and other popular genres. Then they make adjustments if they feel adjustments are needed. Basically, all the categories that drive television ratings, as well as categories and specialty genres, can be rigged by this undisclosed private committee. It's partially because of this anonymous committee that there's been so much drama surrounding the Grammys, but there are also a lot of other factors as well. In May of 2019, the Recording Academy hired Deborah Dugan as their CEO after the previous CEO, Neil Portnow, stepped down after he made misogynistic comments. After his comments, the Academy launched a task force to examine issues of diversity and inclusion within it and the broader music community. This task force and its discoveries will come up throughout the video as they discovered some interesting things. The new CEO, Deborah Dugan, had worked in the music and entertainment industries for a very long time without any issues, and she even raised a bunch of money to fight against AIDS. She also won the Nelson Mandela Changemaker Award in 2017. However, in 2019, she was placed on administrative leave from the Recording Academy after she made misconduct allegations towards them. One of her biggest complaints was that she believed that the Grammys were rigged, filled with tons of conflicts of interest. In the document containing her complaints against the Grammys, she said, "The board uses these committees," referring to the special committees, "as an opportunity to push forward artists with whom they have relationships." One artist, who initially ranked 18 out of 20 in the 2019 Song of the Year category, ended up with the nomination. This artist was actually permitted to sit on the Song of the Year nomination committee. Incredibly, this artist is also represented by a member of the board. Ex-One Direction singer Zayn further backed this when he said in a tweet, "F the Grammys and everyone associated. Unless you shake hands and send gifts, there's no nomination considerations." The Grammys have also been caught putting artists on the final ballot that weren't even chosen in the first phase of voting due to their own personal interest in relationships. Dugan also
So it basically is some favoritism. That's what I'm seeing.
said that the board also manipulates the nominations process to ensure that certain songs or albums are nominated when the producer of the Grammys wants a particular song performed during the show. An example of this could be when BTS was nominated for the Grammys, performed at the Grammys, brought in tons of viewers, and never even won. Because of this event, their fans even got #Scammys trending on Twitter. But they don't even need to nominate an artist to try to use them for their performance. The Weeknd had a record-breaking year with his song Blinding Lights and his album After Hours, and wasn't even nominated for the 2021 Grammy Awards, despite being invited to perform.
What some people don't know is some of the Weeknd videos, like, is a continuation. It's a group of his videos that's like a continuation of this from the song before.
After this, The Weeknd said, "The Grammys remain corrupt. You owe me, my fans, and the industry transparency." And he also said to the New York Times, "Because of the secret committees, I will no longer allow my label to submit my music to the Grammys." According to Billboard, The Weeknd was given an ultimatum about performing either at the Super Bowl or at the Grammys. Apparently, they settled it, saying he could perform at both, knowing that he wasn't going to be nominated. But when the nominations were released, he decided to not perform at the Grammys. However, the scandals of the Grammys run a whole lot deeper than just the secret committees. One of the biggest issues that the Recording Academy has been accused of is sexism. When Deborah Dugan was made CEO, she said she had to resolve many lawsuits that had already been facing the Academy, one of which said, "It's a boys' club and they put their financial interest above the mission." She said that she didn't want to believe it, but after her 5 months working there, she realized that the complaint was correct. She revealed a variety of statistics that showed how few women were ever given senior executive positions, and that both women and minority groups are historically underrepresented at the Grammys. The task force that I mentioned earlier found that women only made up 20% of the Academy's voting members, and that 74% of the nomination review committees were male. And you may think that diversity among the committees or executives isn't necessary, as the popular counter-argument to diversity in businesses is that you should just hire based on qualifications. However, when it comes to nominating...
Wasn't one of the big uproars Nicki not getting one or something like that? Y'all let me know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Voting for something like Album of the Year, you'd probably want to have the widest and broadest spectrum of voters available, especially because statistically speaking, women tend to listen to more female artists on average. So if it's all just dudes on the committee, it's more likely that the Grammy nominations and awards are going to lean more towards the men. She also revealed how the previous CEO, Neil Portnow, was accused of rape, but it had been kept pretty quiet, and the CEO before Portnow, Mike Green, was also forced to resign as CEO after he got caught up in his own sexual harassment scandal. She also claims that she faced a lot of sexism from the Recording Academy despite her being CEO. She says that she was paid a lot less than the previous CEOs, and that she was even sexually harassed by Joel Katz, another powerful executive within the company. After Deborah Dugan brought all of this up to the Recording Academy and the press, she was eventually fired and replaced by now CEO Harvey Mason Jr. The Recording Academy then made claims against Dugan, saying that she creates a toxic and intolerable work environment. After this, she sued the Recording Academy for firing her, and they eventually settled the case in court and decided to keep the terms of the agreement private. But as her lawyer says, Dugan had a very clean slate before the incident with the Recording Academy, making it seem as if she wasn't lying.
Deborah, right here, she worked for 8 years as an executive at EMI. She worked for 8 years as a president at Disney. She worked for 8 years for Bono at Red, raising hundreds of millions of dollars to eradicate AIDS. She never once filed an HR complaint.
Another very prevalent issue that the Grammys have been accused of time and time again reason is racism. When people think of racism in the Grammys, their minds might shoot to well-known and highly controversial situations where a black artist is snubbed by a white artist, such as Maroon 5 winning Best New Artist over Kanye West in 2005, or the classic example of Macklemore's The Heist beating Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City for Album of the Year in 2014, and a more recent example like Adele's 25 beating Beyonce's Lemonade for Album of the Year in 2017. But it actually runs quite a bit deeper than just a few snubs. There's actually a handful of statistics that imply a racial bias within the Recording Academy's choices. Today, more than 81% of Billboard's top 10 best-selling albums are made by non-white or mixed-race groups of artists. But from 2012 to 2020, musicians of color received only 26.7% of Grammy nominations. Zayn, who I mentioned earlier, also called out the Grammys for favoritism.
Didn't Drake get on stage and was like, he said something about, oh, it don't matter or something like that, and he got some type of backlash, or he got something for it, I think. Let me know if I'm wrong on that one.
Racism, saying that they have a lack of transparency. So it's very likely that the lack of diversity in the aforementioned special nominating committee could be what causes some of this. Dugan even said in her complaint against the Recording Academy that one black woman who worked for the Recording Academy was immediately fired after she brought up the issue of diversity. Another huge critique of the Grammys is their racialized categories. A little over a decade into its creation, the Grammys decided to give hip-hop their first category in 1989, the Best Rap Performance category. But it seemed like they weren't fully ready to accept rap as a genre, or maybe they thought the public wasn't, because they decided not to televise that category. Because of this, Will Smith and DJ Jazzy Jeff decided to boycott the Grammys, even though they won the award.
Ignorance on the part of Naris, they don't know anything about rap music, and our boycott was to open their eyes to rap music, so next year some rap group will be able to perform on the Grammys.
If it's summertime. I know that's
And the award will be televised because the music is large enough and important enough to be on that show.
The Best R&B Album category was introduced in 1995, and the Best Rap Album category was...
And that's why at the Grammys, they should have a diverse of people, so they can have, like, people that's going to help, like, oh, yeah, these songs is popping in this genre, these songs is popping in that genre, not just people that's going to listen to what pops up on their radar, what people that's gonna actually do the work and find out what songs pop and what songs need to be, really looked at, what artists need to be, given they thinks.
Introduced in 1996 as a way to be inclusive, although some believe that they are serving the opposite purpose. Fast forward to today, and people believe that the Grammys are boxing in black artists to the rap and R&B fields as a way to say, here, you guys can have this section and the white people can have all the other sections. Like I said, the Grammys operate on a category-based system. One of the most sought after and controversial categories, the Album of the Year category, has only had 11 black artists win in the 64-year history of the Grammys. They even had one category called Best Urban Contemporary Album, which was just recently renamed in 2020 to Best Progressive R&B Album.
And I don't like that urban word. It's just a politically correct way to say the N-word to me. But also, it sucks that whenever we, and I mean guys that look like me, do anything that's genre bending or that's anything, they always put it in a rap or urban category. So when I hear that, I'm just like, why can't we just be in pop?
Grammy viewership is the lowest it's been in the last 22 years, probably as a result of the many scandals and snubs that I previously mentioned. Because of this, it looks like the Grammys are trying to save face. In 2021, the Grammys announced that they were ending the special nominating committees that have been causing such a huge controversy. The executive who picked the members of that committee, Bill Frymouth, also left the organization that year. Recently, the Recording Academy released a video announcing that 2,700 people were joining, and they were heavily emphasizing the diversity that they were bringing to the Academy. So although it's taken a while, it does seem like they're getting better at things, although it could just be a lip service. It's very likely that there are still higher ups that can just pull strings whenever necessary, but at least on the outside it appears that they're making changes. I do think that regardless of the controversy, we're getting to the point where no one's going to care about televised award shows. Part of the reason that the Grammys are at a record low could be attributed to the record low amount of people paying for TV in general, although you can also watch the Grammys on some streaming services. But the rise of streaming services in YouTube seem to be taking a toll on the Grammys and all other televised shows. I could even see a future where a popular and a well-respected YouTuber hosts their own version of the Grammys and could pull more viewership than the actual Grammys themselves, while remaining less corrupt and making better choices. For example, if Mr. Beast wanted to do that, I'm fairly certain he could pull it off. So even if the Grammys can save
me, in my opinion, People barely watch TV as heavy as they did before. People growing up, it don't be too much interest in shows. So it's like if people are watching TV, they watching some random shit or they watching YouTube or something like that.
Face and gain back the trust of the public? Will they survive in a YouTube and streaming service dominated world? Well, only time will tell.
Man, shout out to you. With that being said, also once again, shout out to Cora Gray. I appreciate y'all for all the love and support. Love is love, and I'm gonna catch you on the next video.